Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast and the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022, week 7. Today, we'll continue with the Sin series, 2 weeks to examine the greatest issue known to man. Today's podcast is Lecture A Word of Truth Accounting of Sin, the greatest issue known to man, Day 2. The title of today's podcast is The Wages of Sin, the Sting of Death. The wages of sin is death. The sting of death is sin. Romans 6:23, 1 Corinthians 15:56. Lecture A objectives are: prove we are all working for one of two kingdoms, reveal the wages of sin, reveal how many are dead while they are living, and confirm that we all owe Elohim a debt. For those in our virtual book club, this lecture references Chapter 4 of the Pinnacle of Holiness, Volume 1, The Sin Issue. Our first section is entitled, Who Are You Working For? Now, one of the best ways to analyze sin is by the example of workers. Here's a question. What do we know about workers? In that sense, those who are hired to do a job, not forced into labor. The answer, workers get paid. On this wise, we should all appreciate that we are working for one of two kingdoms. That is to say, our actions, i.e., our operations or our works, are aligned with the objectives of the kingdom of Elohim or the kingdom of darkness. This model of workers and works is scriptural. Revelation 2:19 and 23 reads, I know your works in love and service and belief in your endurance. I am the one searching the reins and hearts, and I shall give to each one of you according to your works. Revelation 20:13 reads, and the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. John 8:34 reads, Yahushua answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. 1 John 3:8-9 reads, the one doing sin is of the devil, because the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of Elohim was manifested. Everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin, because his seed stays in him, and he is powerless to sin because he has been born of Elohim. In this, the children of Elohim and the children of the devil are manifest. Everyone not doing righteousness is not of Elohim, neither the one not loving his brother. Romans 6:16 reads, do you not know that to whom you yield yourselves servants for obedience, you are servants of the one whom you obey, whether of sin to death or of obedience to righteousness? Now, these verses prove that we are either servants of Elohim via our works unto righteousness, or we are servants to the devil via our works unto sin. And after hearing such a terrific number of witnesses, no one can honestly deny the link between service and works. Here's a question. Seeing then that everyone will be judged according to their works, the question of the hour is simple. How do the two primary kingdoms of heaven and earth pay their workers? The answer, the kingdom of Elohim rewards its workers with everlasting life, while the kingdom of darkness rewards its workers with endless death. The former needs no validation, for there is no legitimate controversy over the inheritance of the righteous. On the other hand, the wages of sin, although validated by the word of truth, has been unlawfully modified by the modern church under the guise of eternal security. I do believe I was very thorough in my demolition of this anti-Mashiach doctrine. However, I want to make it very clear to everyone once and for all. It doesn't matter what men may say. The wages of sin is death, and that will never change. That being said, the question you need to ask yourself upon considering the wages of sin is this: who are you working for? As for your answer, it will tell you where you will spend your eternal future. Let's now discuss the wages of sin. No doubt, I have already proven that the wages of sin is death. However, I want to be very clear. This is not just endless death. It is every model of contemporary death. This truth proves the following. Everyone who continues outside of the way of holiness is experiencing some manner of death every day. That is to say, the spiritual and physical nodes that support life are not being replenished. Rather, they are deteriorating and faster than you think. For this cause, when the word of truth reveals the wages of sin is death, you should keep the example of workers in mind. For workers don't get paid when they die. They get paid on a regular basis, i.e. daily, weekly, bi-weekly, etc. And so will you if you continue in sin. Now, I'll begin by providing witnesses to the eternal wages of sin, followed by the witnesses to the contemporary wages of sin. Consider them all faithfully. Psalm 37, 37 to 38 reads, "Watch the perfect and observe the straight, for the latter end of each is peace, but the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The latter end of the wrong shall be cut off." Proverb 8, 33 to 36 reads, "Listen to discipline and become wise, and do not refuse it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me shall find life and obtain favor from Yahuwah. But he who sins against me injures himself. All who hate me love death." Proverbs 10:29 reads, "The way of Yahuwah is a stronghold for the perfect, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity." Ezekiel 18:4 and 20 reads, "See, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father, as well as the soul of the Son, is mine. The soul that is sinning shall die. The soul who sins shall die. The righteousness of the righteous is upon himself, and the wrongness of the wrong is upon himself." Romans 6:12 to 13 and 23 reads, "Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, to obey it in its desires, Neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin. For the wages of sin is death, but the favorable gift of Elohim is everlasting life in Messiah Yahushua, our master. James 1:12 reads, Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been proved, he shall receive the crown of life, which the master has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by Elohim, for Elohim is not tempted by evil matters, and he tempts no one. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own lusts and trapped. Then, when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it has been accomplished, brings forth death. James 5:19-20 reads, Brothers, if anyone among you goes astray from the truth, and someone turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the straying of his way shall save a life from death and cover a great number of sins. Let's now discuss the death of the living. Now, the focus of the verses I have shared thus far is primarily on the eternal wages of sin. From now, I will share a few passages on the contemporary wages of sin to show how those who are outside of the way of holiness are dying while they are living. Matthew 8:21-22 reads, And another of his taught ones said to him, Master, first let me go and bury my father. But Yahushua said to him, Follow me and leave the dead to bury their own dead. 1 Timothy 5:6 reads, She who is living in pleasure is dead while she lives. Now, the most important thing to know concerning this death is the source. No doubt the source is sin. Because of sin, our bodies are subject to sickness, pain, suffering, and a host of other setbacks before they shut down and we die. Likewise, the spiritual man or woman is also subject to sickness, pain, and suffering. The difference is most people ignore the wanting state of their spiritual being, for they put more emphasis on their physical needs as opposed to their spiritual. Here lies the problem. Your physical man cannot be saved. As it is written, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Trust me, Satan knows this, and his kingdom works day and night to keep men and women focused on their physical desires while ignoring their spiritual being. This is because our spiritual being or division is where salvation takes place. We receive the set-apart spirit of Elohim, and he begins to transform our spiritual being. This is beyond crucial, and here is why. When the spirit begins transforming our spiritual being, our physical being must comply with the direction the spirit is leading us. And this is the only scenario in which our physical being will comply. Otherwise, it will pursue its own lust and set the entire body on fire, figuratively and literally. This speaks to the significance of the initial salvation. That is, we experience a resurgence of life at this juncture. It is not the abundant life that Yahushua Messiah came to give us, but it is the starting point. And here is why this is so critical. This resurgence of life is in our spiritual being. Thus, it, unlike our flesh, not only has the ability to be made eternal, it is the only way we can be made eternal. It is the only way we can inherit everlasting life. Here's the clincher. This is only possible if you overcome sin. Remember, Elohim has purpose to make an end of sin. Therefore, anyone who has sinned can in no wise be made eternal. Consequently, there are two life or death choices you can make in this life. I advise you to consider them carefully. You can choose to die to sin so that you may live now and forever, or you can choose to live unto sin so that you may die now and forever. This, my friends, is the sting of death. This, my friends, is the result of sin. Because of sin, all of us have to die. We proved this in the most recent series on redemption. That's the bad news. The good news is we are all given the opportunity to choose how we are going to die. We can die to sin, or we can die to life. My advice to you is simply this: choose wisely, for you will spend an eternity living with whatever choice you make, and you will have no opportunity to change the sentence handed down to you at the judgment. Now, here is the final word. Life is made up of choices, and the greatest of these is how you choose to die. We all owe Elohim a death, is a true saying. For if you choose to die to sin so that you may have everlasting life, you owe him a death. And if you choose to live a life of sin, you will fall into endless death. And in falling, you have paid him your debt, proving once and for all, we all owe Elohim a death. You are on this quest with me because you have decided it is in your best interest to die now, to sin, and anything that defiles, anything that would prevent you from inheriting everlasting life. Thus, I advise you to stay with me because there is a lot more you need to know about this death, the death we are dying. Now, here is today's assignment. In your prayers, restate your commitment to your quest for holiness and to dying the death required for you to have everlasting life, and meditate on it day and night. And here's what's next in the series. We complete today's podcast, The Wages of Sin, The Sting of Death. Tomorrow's podcast is Types of Sin, Part 1. Now, if you're not a member, you have questions about today's podcast, feel free to contact us via our website at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and use the form on our contact page, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. And thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022.